morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, it's time to have a little bit of a look at Gengar. Yeah, we've got a new Gengar, and apparently this new Gengar's pretty good, and apparently it's winning over in Japan and doing rather well, and proving to be a pretty gosh darn good Gengar, and everybody loves Gengar. Gengar's always been one of the more popular Pokemon, so I thought, right, probably time we had a look at this new Gengar. Shout out to the lovely Talonite X over on Twitter for sharing a deck list with us. Now, it's not an entirely Gengar deck, but it really is Gengar that's at the centre of this, making it work, and certainly the fattest line we've got in the deck is Gengar, so I think that makes it a pretty good Gengar deck. So what does Gengar actually do? Well, our translation here comes, as a lot of ours do, from the lovely David Hockman over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. And the new Gengar, as often as you like, during your turn, you may move one damage counter from one of your Psychic Pokemon to another one of your Psychic Pokemon. Now, we can also, for 2 Psychic, 1 Colourless Energy, do 90 damage plus Sleep. That's not really what we're looking at here. That's not our goal. We want to move a whole bunch of damage around. Okay. But you see, that on its own doesn't do anything. Like, Gengar alone doesn't actually do very much. What we need to do is actually have a bunch of Pokemon with a bunch of damage on, so that we can then move that damage around and help. And we've actually got some really good options, and we're going for the big chunky Pokemon here. Now, one you shouldn't be surprised to learn we're using here is Mewtwo and Mew. Now, Mewtwo and Mew can copy any EX or GX in your discard pile or in play. But the other thing is, the next couple Pokemon we're going to look at are actually weak to darkness. Mewtwo and Mew just so happens to be weak to Psychic. So you're covering your weakness quite nicely here. But Mewtwo and Mew doesn't, it's got an attack which heals a bunch of damage and all that. But really, it's there to copy other Pokemon. One of the ones we've got here is Mimikyu and Gengar. I know, right? It's actually called Gengar and Mimikyu, and it fits our Gengar theme quite nicely. The main attack here, 2 Psychic Energy Poltergeist, 50 damage for each trainer card in your opponent's hand. Now again, this is one you're unlikely to be using on its own, because it's got 240 HP. You're probably going to copy it with Mewtwo and Mew, though against a Psychic deck, maybe you'll go for this on its own. It's not always going to work. Might work, might not work. But what it does do is give you an option. If you think your opponent's got a handful of trainer cards, or even if your opponent's just got a large hand of cards, such that it's likely they've got a bunch of trainer cards, this will be very nice indeed. And the other one we've got here is Trevenant and Dusknoir. Trevenant and Dusknoir is a very, very good card. 3 Psychic Energy, 150 damage. Choose 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. Your opponent shuffles them into their deck. So you've got a decent amount of damage going on, while also getting some cards back into their hand. This is quite big, because remember, the whole point here, you are trying to not get KO'd, so that Gengar can save you. All these Pokemon we're looking at, they're high HP Pokemon. The point is to try and keep them alive, stop them getting one-hit KO'd, and then move the energy off using Gengar. Well, gee whiz, it sure would be nice if you could limit your opponent's options to make it harder for them to KO you. Now, we've also got Pale Moon GX, 1 Psychic, 1 Colourless Energy. At the end of your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon will be KO'd. If you've got a 3rd energy on their 2nd Psychic, discard all energy from your opponent's active Pokemon, meaning they're less likely to be able to retreat, and they're really relying on being able to switch out, which you're making harder with the first attack. This all sounds pretty good. Now, there is another Pokemon here that's not really so much for tanking, but is a really great option in this deck, and that's Wobbuffet V. You see, Wobbuffet V's first attack for 2 Colourless Energy lets you swap all damage on Wobbuffet V with all damage on the defending Pokemon. So if you've got a bunch of damage on your Pokemon, move it all over to Wobbuffet V, although to be clear, not more than 210, and then use the attack to move it over to your opponent's active Pokemon. So you're not just moving damage around using Gengar, though you are and that's a good thing. You're also moving it onto Wobbuffet so that you can then move it onto your opponent's Pokemon, which is kind of hilarious. Now, we do see a little bit of Dawnwing's Necrozma here. It's got that ability that lets it jump into the active, and now we've got Balloon, which reduces your retreat cost by 2. It will give free retreat to Dawnwing's Necrozma, so you can jump in the active, retreat. It basically gives you as much as you want switching around your Pokemon. Though don't sleep on the GX attack of Dawnwing's Necrozma here. You can only use it if you're behind on prizes, but you do 180 damage and makes you immune to all attacks the following turn. You can use that on Dawnwing's Necrozma, but you can actually copy it with Mewtwo and Mew to give Mewtwo and Mew a turn of immunity. That could be fun. We do play a bunch of Balloon in the deck though, so we really do have a couple of good uses for this particular Pokemon. And then of course we need to get the energy. It's a Malamar deck, sorry. It's a Psychic deck. Unless you're rocking single energy attackers, think something like the old Garbodor, which has rotated, but was a great single energy attacker, we're playing Malamar. Malamar is what you need in a Psychic deck. It really is as simple as that. Sorry. And then like so many decks nowadays, we've got one copy of that Absol. It increases the retreat cost of your opponent's active Pokemon if they're a basic. Given that we're in a format full of Pokemon V and Pokemon Tag Team GXs, yeah, seems like a pretty good option. I should also mention we have one copy of that Nihilego. This is often a one-of in a lot of Psychic decks. Nihilego for 1 Psychic Energy, Confuse and Poison, no one really cares. But also if your opponent has exactly 2 prizes remaining, you get to copy one of your opponent's attacks. Any of your opponent's attack. Even if it's a GX attack, if you haven't used one already. It is phenomenal, not just copying the active. Nihilego should be a one-of in most of these decks. Now in terms of energy, obviously we're playing largely Psychic energy here because of the whole Malamar thing. But we're also playing a couple copies of the unit energy, the one with Psychic in. And we see this more and more at the moment, and the entire reason for this is Guzma and Hala. Guzma and Hala lets you search out, well, firstly your stadium, but if you discard a couple cards from your hand, you also get yourself a Pokemon tool and a special energy. And we see this more and more nowadays, people playing 1 or 2 special energy just so you can search it with Guzma and Hala. While we're here, our stadium of choice is Viridian Forest. It's good for searching out our energy. It's also good for discarding our energy so that we can accelerate it using Malamar. In terms of Pokemon tools, we've got the aforementioned Balloon to help retreat, but we've also got Giant Charm that gives you an extra 30 HP. And this should be a bit of a no-brainer. We're moving damage around using Gengar. We're trying to keep our Pokemon alive using Gengar. Why would you not then want to play Giant Charm to give yourself extra HP? Now we do also see Mallow and Lana here. It acts as a switch, but it also helps you to heal 120 damage. Yes, you can move damage around with Gengar to try and protect your active Pokemon. Yes, you can move it to Wobbuffet to put it onto your opponent's active Pokemon. But sooner or later, there's going to be too much damage on the field for you to effectively deal with. That's when Mallow and Lana comes in. And given that we've got a couple different tag team supporters and we've got 3 different tag team Pokemon, Tag Call that lets you search out 2 of any of them seems like a no-brainer at this stage. In terms of Pokemon search, obviously we've got Mysterious Treasure. We're an almost entirely Psychic deck, not 100%, but pretty close. I think it's literally just the Absol. So Mysterious Treasure, discard 1 card from your hand, search out any of them. Pretty gosh darn good. And then we got Quick Ball to search out your basics because you've got some evolutions in there, but you've got a lot of basic Pokemon. In terms of other supporters here, we've got Professor Magnolia. It lets you discard your hand and draw 7 cards. It's the fastest, most aggressive supporter we've got. It's going to fuel a bunch of decks. And like so many decks we see in Japan at the moment, we also play Marnie. That's the one that's basically Judge, except you draw 5 cards, your opponent draws 4, and the hands get put on the bottom of your deck rather than being shuffled in randomly. We also do, of course, see 2 copies of Reset Stamp, because you need to try and slow your opponent down if they get a big lead. And if you haven't figured out by now we're playing Rare Candy, Well, let me say it. You're playing a Stage 2 deck. Obviously, you're playing Rare Candy. I like this new Gengar. And now that we've got all these other great Psychic Pokemon, we got a lot of ways to take advantage of it. Maybe you literally just whack a Giant Charm on Mewtwo and Mew and heal it with Mallow and Lana, and you just play it as a Mewtwo and Mew deck with a bit more healing. Or maybe you play around with stuff like Wobbuffet and really get a little bit tricksy. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what you think about this deck, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, me nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are still pretty gosh darned awesome. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.